Oh, God. Tiny Mike interview. There's probably someone in here. Normally I'd go in there and bother them, but Slaney and Chuck are like literally mid-coaching, like trying to figure out how to win SPL matches and stuff like that. So their brain is engaged a bit more so with the game itself. I don't want to talk to anyone about a game ever. I want to talk to people about, you know, their hobbies, their passions, what they're eating. Benny.
Waffle.
Just waffle. Uh-huh.
Well, I had some eggs in here as well, but I even finished those.
Yeah, I could see that. There used to be eggs in there for sure. Mm-hmm. What's the daily caloric intake, bud?
Well, it depends. Anywhere from 3 to 4,000, maybe 5.
What's your maintenance?
3?
Mine's 2,700. I'm 300 pounds. Kyrmi, who's the coolest member of the Valhalla Valkyries?
I think you know this answer. It's got to be Aqua, right?
Yeah, I knew the answer. I just wanted to hear someone else say it. Did you view Twig's most recent fraud tier list?
I have.
Yeah. Where did he put you?
No help.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. Yeah. 2 members of the Valks and no help, or just you?
Just me.
Yeah. And do you agree with that?
I mean, Twig's a smart man. That's all I have to say.
I mean, jungler's get no help. Oh, God. Shouldn't have leaned so far down.
I have a nosebleed, Mifflin. It's not a good time.
I'm told.
No, I really do have one.
He's got a nosebleed. I got like big Stranger Things vibes from you right there. Yeah, like I don't know the kid's name.
I'm up for some mischief.
Yeah, huh? And the other Valks just like aren't here, so we're back to. How's that waffle treating you?
It's great, dude. I don't have enough syrup actually, but you know it's pretty good. Oh my God.
There was just a there was
Now I'm done with it as well. So.
there was just a syrup the whole time.
Your mic was live for that. We started off our day with a 2-0 win for the Oni Warriors, and we move into our second set of the day. This is a top versus bottom matchup. The Valhalla Valkyries in 8th place going up against the Camelot Kings, who are in 1st at the moment. And you know, purple, the color of royalty, the color of the Camelot Kings, and also the color of the Prime logo, who happens to be one of our sponsors here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. If you are already a Prime member, make sure you're making the most of it. You get all your benefits. You get free subs to Twitch channels, free in-game content, and free games every single month. So shout-outs to Prime for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League, and make sure you at home are getting the most out of your Prime membership. And if you're not a Prime member, go ahead and sign up for that. Now, my name is Dolson Gormizer, who, again, I hope shrieked into the mic just prior to us getting onto camera here.
Would you call that a shriek?
That was a spur of the moment, didn't think about it very much type of word
that was like
that
an
I
energetic noise that I would. That's how I describe.
What is a shriek?
What is a shriek? A shriek is like a scream in terror. Like if you're like in a
so
horror
it's the
movie,
terror,
that's a shriek.
It's the terror portion.
Yeah, it's
that
the
you're,
connotation
you're
of the word is what I'm hearing here.
I would still argue a shriek is an energetic outburst,
well, yeah, I guess it's fueled by adrenaline and.
That's right. Well, Gore, we only have 2 more sets remaining this week in the SMITE Pro League. You and I got to cast one more later on. We got to keep the heads on straight. Oni Warrior Scarab started off our day. Valhalla Valkyries and Kings have both played this weekend already. Both played in a 2-0 set. A win for the Kings and a loss for the Valkyries against the Dragons. Remember, there was some weirdness in that Valks-Dragon set as far as compositions go. Camelot Kings, though, have been rolling here as of late. Lost to the Leviathans at the first time they met earlier on this phase, and that is it. The Camelot Kings will stand alone with just the 1 loss on top of the standings. And this is a win. Again, remember, in Phase 1, all the teams pretty closely knit, back and forth. But like standings-wise, we were only 1 win amongst all of the teams separating one another. If the Kings can get this win here, they'll grab themselves that 2-win cushion, Gore. And moving to the end of Phase 2. 2 wins feels really, really big when you consider how close the pack is.
Especially when you're looking at the end of the phase, right? We're week 5, 6, 7, 8, 3 more after this one to go through to get the full round robin, and then you're starting to talk about, okay, well, what's your seeding going into the Summer Masters, right? What is your seeding in the next land? What is your seeding, and how is that going to impact you? You know, because you go back to phase 1. And if you were the top 2 seeds, you just straight up didn't play until like the last 3 days of game. Like you got to avoid getting knocked out for a majority of that bracket. I mean, with 16 teams in there, I think you were guaranteed top 6. If I remember, maybe it was top 8. Math is really hard sometimes, no matter what. And so it was really, really good positioning for them to be in. If you're the Kings and you're dominating this hard, it's got to feel good.
Absolutely. And look, it feels like the Kings are playing every facet of the game properly. Early game, mid-game, late game. Feels like all of it, Gore, is going in the right direction for the Camelot Kings, a team that does not have a lot of weaknesses, if any weaknesses at all. As a matter of fact, I think the only thing I can look at this team and say, I don't know, this could get capitalized on against them, is that BMT is playing on ping. Only BMT has been playing Smite just as well, it seems. This is a hard team to beat, Gord. Only the Leviathans have been able to do so this phase. I'm not sure a lost streak starts today.
And it's what is exciting to me about that is the fact that you get to see this team that, last year was suffering from having multiple people on ping, didn't really get to, I think, hit the full stride they wanted to. When they did get towards the end of the year, I think good seeding unfortunately fell to the Leviathans at Worlds, fell to them again here in Phase 2. Maybe there's some kryptonite there for them that they have to focus on, but otherwise, the fact that everything has just been getting cleaner for them has been impressive. And I think my favorite thing was I don't know how long ago it was when the question was like, how are you treating like God picks for BigManTingz right now? And the answer was just like no different. It's just like, like if we tell him to play it, he's going to play it. And so I think that's just a fun direction for this team. Again, it's unfortunate that he's going to be playing from Europe, but the fact that he's making it work as well as he is just absolutely insane to me. And the fact that they continue to be on the rise is impressive.
Well, Gore, at the forefront of every winning team is a winning mindset, and that's what Biggie's got.
I thought you were going to say a
one.
winning Australian.
That too. I mean, the mindset is Australian.
It seems to go hand in hand. I don't know what it is about historically like successful teams in Smite.
Where else has that been?
I feel like in like years past, like right? Am I making this up? Ask Biggie. He'll know better.
I don't know, maybe. But at the forefront of this team is Biggie. Look, in a team that is so calculated and dialed in on macro play, pick ban strategy, things like that, obviously there's a lot behind the scenes that's working for this team, VOD review, strategy building. Biggie's got a great Smite mindset, and there's a lot of big personalities on this team, and I think he's done a fantastic job.
I think my favorite thing is just the knowledge of this player base. Like, you go look at it, like, in the 5 guys that are playing here have a very, I want to say, like, very good. Very good and very specific, like, play styles each of them will typically match to, things like that. But they don't try to conform to what other people do. Like, I look over here, the first thing that stands out to me is Ratatoskr. Like, how many other people are running Ratatoskr solo successfully as consistently as Variety can? Like, that's a King's special kind of deal to me. Twig, I think, is just a phenomenal jungler. Like, the way this team forms together is just difficult to overcome.
Part of me wonders, as far as Variety's God pool goes, how much Biggie actually has a say in that versus Variety just saying, this is what I want to play today. That's been a lot of the rumblings we've heard behind the scenes. Strategy may be imparted by Biggie, but choice made by Variety. Biggie standing by with me for the pregame interview. Biggie, start off with something that Gore and I talked about here. BigManTingz obviously playing on ping here lately. Have you guys as a team noticed much different? I mean, he's still playing really good Smite. Do you think your play has been pretty similar?
I saw an AMC highlight where he missed every ability at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So I put that one down to ping.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think in general as a coach, I'm not too nitpicky about mechanics because, I mean, they're better players than me. They understand the mechanics more than me. I'm never going to really critique that. And I don't think there's ever any point in being like, oh, you missed these abilities.
Sure.
It's more important to focus on other things, but it's definitely had an impact on like a couple of gods we would like to be playing, but not as big as last time. We've kind of just said, like I said last time, let's just force these things. If you lose games because you miss abilities, then that's just life,
Yeah, fair enough. Look, there's a bit of history that production filled us in on. You and Sharks used to coach against one another back in like Oceania Smite days.
Maybe.
Is there, maybe. All right. Well, that answers my question. I was going to ask if there's any sneaky beef behind the scenes between you and Sharks, and you have like a little extra something in this one. But I'm going to assume that's a no.
I don't know. I'm not a beef guy.
No?
I'm pretty like laid back, do my own thing.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I like Sharks. He's
That's
a good guy,
chicken,
so.
not beef.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Look, really from a coaching mindset, when a team is playing, I mean, you lost to the Leviathans once, the only team you lost to in the first half of this phase.
Yeah.
Is it hard as a coach week in and week out when your team is playing such good Smite to like find things that you want to work on, or would you say you're on easy street with these guys, kind of keeping them in check?
I don't think so. I think there's always things to work on.
Yeah.
I think even though we're first seed, we're not an unbeatable team.
Right.
Obviously, we lost to Levi's. We were pretty close to losing to Bolts 2-0, which could have like changed our momentum a lot in the season.
Right.
I think you're always working on things. At the moment for us, I think we went like a bit reverse where we got really good at our early mid games, and our macro and our late game was kind of weak.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of flipped on our head, and now we're just kind of like ramping up and improving on everything, like at all
Right.
stages of the game.
Well, look, a improved Camelot Kings from this point is a very scary Camelot Kings. You're doing good work with the team, and best of luck here in this set.
Thanks.
Camelot Kings, headlined by Biggie here and Gore. I think that's a great mindset to have for this team as far as finding improvement steps moving forward.
And it is very much like what he mentioned, right? Where it's just like, okay, find the parts where maybe you're looking a little weaker. We talk about the Kings. I always like to mention them as like a late game composition and a late game team where sometimes for them, it doesn't even matter what happens in the first 18 minutes. We were talking a lot about this Leviathans last year and the year before that, where it was like, cool, they don't care. They could be down 6K, 25 minutes in, they're just going to beat you because they're better at team fights. It's not as egregious as that for the Kings. Their early game's still really solid, mid game's still really good, and we've seen that multiple times, but they don't have to get off to a stellar start. They could fall behind and still wait for the team fight, and they're really good at prolonging the game to give them that successful scenario.
Gore, the opponent for the Camelot Kings today, the Valhalla Valkyries, who, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say have had almost the opposite style of phase here in phase number 2. The Valks, of course, the new team to the SPL. And look, the storyline from minute 1 of this Valkyries team qualifying into now is that they're new to the league. They were the best of the SEC teams. It was going to take some wind-up time, but we are 1 week past the halfway point of the year. We're over halfway through phase number 2, so we're technically on the downhill swing towards the postseason, though we have a lot of Smite to be played before that. And so hoping to see market improvements from this squad.
Yeah.
Now, I do think they have gotten up to speed in certain areas, but very clearly still have a lot of room to grow. I mean, if you're looking at like Worlds runs, things like that this year, this team has got a lot to work on. If you're looking at 5, 6, 7 months from now, postseason for Smite.
Yeah, there, like you said, a lot to try and cover. I think in a short amount of time, if their goal is Worlds this year. And honestly, if they legitimately played for their spot in the league this year, I think that they want to be in the Worlds conversation, right?
Of course.
But the idea for them to not win a world championship in their first year isn't the end of the world for them, right? And I think that's something to kind of keep in mind, is balancing it out. I think that as a team, they've gotten a lot better at the early game. Some of the farm that was very egregious for them in the first couple of weeks has gotten a lot better, so that there were times where they'd be up 5 kills to 0 and down 3,000 gold somehow, and it's just that the macro farm in the SBL was a lot different than what it was in the SEC. So I'm really appreciative of how this team has been able to adapt. Again, yes, they have I think a lot of stuff to work on, but is this one where, I even told you earlier, where it's like, if we're interviewing the Valkyries, I want to know what their considerations for victories are right now, because if you're going into a game against a team like the Kings, in my mind, you're not coming into this thinking we're going to absolutely win this set.
No.
If you're being realistic with yourselves, obviously you want to hype yourselves up, pump up,
Have a chance,
and come
right?
in.
Any given day.
Yeah,
right?
any given day. But you're coming in a realistic expectation. Again, I think you set those little goals for you, where are your wins? Can we prolong this game and make it really close? Can we win a single game, make this a 3-game set? Things like that are the immediate check boxes I go to if I'm the Valkyries. Otherwise, it's looking at improvements inwardly and not necessarily looking towards the Kings and outbound there. You want to make sure that everything is focused on how you can improve yourselves.
Well, Gore, as far as picks and bans go, it's very difficult to strategize against a team like the Camelot Kings because they do have a couple notable styles of compositions that they tend to go towards, especially centered around BigManTingz. You know, the Merlins have looked good for him recently, but also a Neith style of comp, Poseidon style of comp have worked for this Kings team. I mean, there's just so much to look at when you're banning out against the Camelot Kings. You're kind of picking the lesser of two evils, it feels like, that you're playing against a good portion of the time. And I actually don't mind, on the flip side, if I look at the Kings bans, I don't mind the Cabrakan ban, because if you think back to the set yesterday, even though it was an 0-2 for the Valhalla Valkyries against them, you know, I think Gamma on this Cabrakan actually had some pretty good moments, provided some good setup. And so you look at small wins, things like that, Gamma finding a style of pick that works for him in the Cabrakan, I think a small win.
Because I think talking about yesterday's set is maybe the best thing, because for the Valks, you know, they had a comp that was Huang, Erlang, Shen, Chiron, Ganesh, Raven. That comp got rolled over. But the Huang, Nemesis, Amma, Cabrakan, Wukong, that comp was winning for a majority of the game, was able to find a lot of progress and, you know, some stumbles late game, give the Dragons the ends they need in order to turn things around. But I think that if you look at the way that the Kings are playing against this, I think that is a good target to just try and limit the Valks on some of the things that were successful for them yesterday, that they gave a little bit of trouble over there to the Dragons, and try to set yourselves up for success. Because if I'm looking at this, I say, hey, they got the like great picks in the first game and couldn't do anything with it. They played their style second game and were able to control it. You control their style and force them onto quote-unquote the meta, then I think it gives the Kings a pretty strong lift into the game.
Yeah, you know, it's always that's the growing point of a lot of teams. Like when you have made it to SPL level, you're really able to play your game, focus on your game, and then adapt in game if the other team is doing certain things. But going into a game, trying to counter out the opposing team's style, always a difficult angle to take, especially again when the team is as good as the Camelot Kings that you're playing against. Xing Chen has been a very popular first pick for good reason. 88% win rate on the Xing Chen across 16 games. And Chiron, and I don't mean this in a bad way, feels telegraphed with the Camelot Kings, because this has just been Netrioid's pick. Been a bunch of Chiron, Ullr unsprinkled in there, and then the odd Heimdallr too. But Chiron for the Kings has just worked. I mean, it is such a solid pick for this Kings team. Netrioid knows what he's doing, knows what he gets in the late game, and so I like the start of the Kings draft.
It's only been banned against him 3 times total. Otherwise, they've picked it up. It is their most played god this phase, and for good reason. I mean, exactly like you said, Netrioid has just been going back to this. It has been very strong for him. And again, the amount of damage that he has output. Huang. And the way I think it's really specific to certain styles of play as well. The Kings do this so well, and that Netrioid doesn't get touched a lot, right? Like, I mean, in terms of danger, he's pretty fine throughout the back line. You know, you have to burn through, it feels like, everyone else before you can get to him. There's obviously been a lot of exceptions to that, and you know, it's not going to be a consistent, like, just blanket rule or blanket statement that'll be true for the Kings over the last, like, year and a half. But for the most part over the last couple of weeks, it feels like he can just free cast from the back line, gets a lot of free damage out there, and I think that you get into a good position. The Xing Chen, whether it's solo or if it's going into support, if it's support alongside the Chiron, then you've got a lot of setup and potential there. If it goes over to solo lane, you're still looking good in team fights, because you've got this Furious Roar that does basic attack damage reduction against the enemy. You've got really good CC, a lot of setup, and a lot of peel that works one way or the other, depending on whether the Kings are getting aggressed on or aggressing. And up against an Osiris and an Erlang Shen, I think the Xing Chen already feels like he's going to be very helpful in keeping this Chiron alive. You add in a Nemesis that lets that Chiron do even more damage, and it's a very, very powerful top 3.
Yep, Nem, a great pick for CaptainTwig. In the last 2 games, we've seen the Nem has been a combined 7, 2, and 12 on the Nemesis, so far from a bad pick for CaptainTwig. Something that can really drive the pace of these games with. Camelot Kings still need a pick for BigManTingz out of mid. Kukulkan, one of his popular styles. It really feels like only a couple mids are playing this pick. BMT, one of them. Baronic, the other. But BigManTingz' god pool is so unique, Gore. You know, I think at this point the Valkyries are saying, I think Kukulkan in particular really punishes us, and ESET in particular really punishes us. because there's a Merlin still available. I mean, if you really want a Neith composition, a Neith still available, things like that. Still here and still around for BigManTingz. So taking a couple of bans, but far from banned out.
And what I really love here is Chiron, like, it's not far-fetched to think of Chiron mid. It has been going to Netrioid, and I think it is something that I expect to go to Netrioid. But Chiron going into the mid lane is not anywhere near the weirdest thing that we've seen over the last few weeks. And so you're in a position as the Kings where now you can decide, is this a BigManTingz pick or is it a Netrioid pick? And you can then try to find something that's going to be a little more favorable to you, whether it's another Hunter, if you want to go for someone like, Ullr's still available, Magical Hunter, if you have to pivot there, maybe for Netrioid, or you can go for a big style mid laner. You had mentioned it, but like Poseidon's still available, big burst styles of play that are open. And you can choose that based on what the Valkyries lock in here, so you have a lot of flexibility in those picks to keep yourselves open.
Wonder what this Vamana would look like mid for BennyQ, because Wowy has played the Huang.
Wow.
Remember, BennyQ played Sun Wukong just yesterday, and in that game, Wowy played Huang. So I wouldn't be surprised, Gore, if it ends up being Huang over in duo for Wowy, and then Vamana mid for BennyQ.
I wouldn't mind an answer to the question of how does Wowy play warriors, right? Like, I mean, we've seen it a couple of times. Like, the Titans have been running it.
Wow,
and kind of that curious, if they take it over there. I think it's the Huang. I agree with you on that. But if it was something else, it would at least scrub some of that curiosity to figure out what it's going to be.
Well, Gore, I mean, again, when I talked about the Kukulkan and the ESET being banned out, there's still so much that BigManTingz can play out of mid that changes the dynamic of the Kings composition so heavily. And what the Kings do, it feels like every time, they drop the Nem ult on someone, they get the World Weaver to connect onto that person, and then there's just sudden, and this is like early game, like ganks, like expect wherever Twig goes to just drop Retribution, World Weaver hits the same target, and then whatever lane just piles on that person. Might not be Vamana, because there's Colossal Fury, but it feels like the other lanes on this map have a chance to really feel the pressure from the Kings.
Well, that's part of the reason Neith it feels so good in mid lane, right? Is just the travel time on that ult being reduced from there, as opposed to having to launch it all the way from duo, or in really old, rare circumstances, all the way from solo. Either of the side lanes has a lot of travel time. Mid, jungler's right there, solo or support's right there, mid's in front of you, and like the slightly further distance off to the side lanes is not going to be anywhere near as much. So I think that it's a good pick for them. Again, like you said, for lockdown, when it comes to CC, they have exactly what they need. It is going to make a lot of their composition a little more physical damage heavy when you're looking at who is going to be getting the kills. So maybe some itemization there for like Gamma Aquarius becomes a little easier, but at the end of the day, if you're getting the penetration that we've been seeing from a Chiron, doesn't feel as though that's going to be the thing to hang your hat on. You're going to have to figure out how to deal with those ganks, and you're going to have to do it fast.
Yeah, I really like the Camelot Kings composition here. That said, the Valhalla Valkyries score and the way that they have drafted, they've given themselves the opportunity to exert some pressure early on in this game. Kyrmi and the Erlang Shen, we assume, is a very strong pairing. Do you think there's any lane particularly at risk of an Erlang Shen gank, Erlang Shen pressure early in the game?
I mean, Neith is really easy to gank, right? Like, her backflip is so telegraphed, you know exactly where it's going to go from where it is. The downside's going to be the surrounding area. I mean, Nemesis can kind of slow you down. Theoretically, if you're not playing too aggressively there for BigManTingz, you're going to be under your tower, so early on should be safe. Duo lane, Chiron has the dash. Feels like it's going to be a little more difficult, especially with a Xing Shin there for Peel to maybe try and get in there. Artio, while she does have the dash, again, Pin might be able to help find that out. If they focus an Erlang Shin and an Artio on the right-hand side of the map is a lot of damage in a small area, so they should be able to find some pressure over there. Maybe get Aquarius up to a good lead, a comfortable lead for Kyrmi, as you mentioned, and let BennyQ just kind of hang out as a warrior. Theoretically, early game clear is going to favor the Neith, but after a couple of levels, he should be able to fight back a little bit.
Well, the Valhalla Valkyries have maybe found an identity in the unique. Can the unique work here in game number 1 against the Camelot Kings? In we go to find out.
Well, unique has worked in the past. We'll see if it pays off for the Valhalla Valkyries in this first game, but they're going up against the #1 seed Camelot Kings, who have drafted themselves, well, a Camelot King style of draft. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug hopping into game number 1, our second set of the day between the Valhalla Valkyries and the Camelot Kings. BennyQ, sticking to the BennyQ mentality, picking something a little bit weird in the mid lane, though. He's not the first person to bring out the Vamana mid. I believe that was actually Dardes over on the Oni Warriors not too long ago.
Good amount of pressure. You got a decent matchup in a BigManTingz. You can stack that physical defense real early on, get the benefit of that Vamana passive, and then, you know, Colossal Fury chase down pretty strong. The only concern for that Vamana is the fact that BigManTingz is very capable of just playing incredibly passive. And then once you get to the late game, Vamana generally starts to fall off, be it from Ankh or just generalized anti-heal elsewhere from the Camelot Kings. So expect the Valhalla Valkyries to play very heavily through this mid 3v3. Kyrmi and Benny both playing auto attackers. Gamma with that coerce. All three of them pretty strong divers against a pretty telegraphed disengage from Tingz. The Valkyries, I think with this draft, have essentially just got a timer on themselves. You gotta win out pretty early.
A lot of that, and a lot of the pressure, at least for the Valkyries, that where they've found their success, has come from Kyrmi in the jungle. Typically, wherever he can at least get those first couple of kills for his team, that's where we start seeing success in the lane, helps them transition towards that mid stage of the game. But it's not going to work out so well for Aquarius. A rotation from CaptainTwig nets first blood for the Camelot Kings in the solo lane.
Just a simple rotation there from Twig. Blink in, Aqua a little too far up, doesn't have all that survivability that we associate with Osiris until Tether is available, until Lord of the Afterlife is available as well, and at level 2, you don't have either.
BigManTingz gets his backflip away. A chase onto Wowy by Genetics. And kind of going back towards that solo lane, it's something I mentioned with Gore yesterday, but we've been seeing a lot of the junglers kind of ignore the mid lane, ignore the left side of the map for the first couple of minutes, and try and get some of that very early pressure in solo, typically go for those first totem of coups, and then we somewhat often see a gank at least go over into that lane, so it seems the Camelot Kings sticking to their guns in that same strat.
And it's already paid for itself. Variety, with that physical defense start, should be able to hold his own in this lane with relative ease. Conduit Gem makes up the bulk of your clear, and because Aqua has decided to go down that Bumbas tree so early, doesn't really have enough clear to punish this Guardian in the solo lane. Gonna be a little while till Aqua can hold his own, but I mean, solo is generally pretty handshake. As far as solo kills are concerned, pretty unlikely.
CaptainTwig versus Kyrmi now, as Kyrmi has used the mink form to get in. The shield from CaptainTwig reflecting some good damage back. Root from max range on Variety. Pin, not enough. Kyrmi will go down. Variety with the swipes will pick up his second kill.
The second that Kyrmi decides to commit that mink form, that's the entirety of his survivability lost out. Does not have beads, so Variety just simply connects the root, and the Camelot Kings keep up their onslaught on the right-hand side of the map. Kyrmi's got to recognize that Aqua's just not in a position to help him there. He's already been accosted in the lane. If he rotates through, loses his life, would teleport down, would have likely lost 6, maybe 7 minions of that tower. I think that's a situation where you just have to be willing to lose your blue.
Netrioid rooted, stunned, caught in the fire, down to about 200 HP. Gamma still pushing forward, but uses the horrific emblem, not recognizing that Wowy wasn't ready with the setup on after, so it's a relic used, and Netrioid got that dash back up in time, so the dual lane will be fine. Attempted pressure at that purple buff, but Gamma recognizing that they were probably going to lose pressure lane, held on to that Hand of the Gods to make sure he could secure the buff.
Yeah, unfortunate, horrific timing. I suppose just didn't know the timer on Netrioid's dash. That giddy up probably had about a second left on it by the time horrific was used, and Netrioid is able to just get himself out of there. Doesn't even have to use the beads. 100 seconds on Gamma's relic of choice, but this early on, I like to see just pretty wild usage of horrific. I think it's more so just used to get a little bit of damage, a little bit of poke, and set up for some ganks.
Only one of the Harpies taken because it's a gank by Kyrmi on the left side. Genetics in danger, doesn't have his ultimate to get himself out. Does have some backup from BigManTingz, who finds one stun. But the Valkyries are going to give up the chase, not continue forward, because now CaptainTwig is here. Finds Slice Dice onto Wowy, gets rooted out. The fire just off the mark. An ult from CaptainTwig to get some chase. But with the tier 1 tower there, the Camelot Kings will be the ones to now back off.
Strong re-engage from the Camelot Kings. Twig really wanted to focus Wowy. The float was down, doesn't have the dueling dragons just yet, so that was the entirety of his safety, barring those beads. But Netrioid and Genetics not really in range to follow up. They're trying to focus down Kyrmi. Twig switches his attention, but too little too late once that Slice and Dice had already been expended. So even with the ultimate, Kyrmi able to walk himself out of there. I'd argue still a great exchange for the Camelot Kings, considering how that fight started off. You'd really expect the Valkyries to be able to pick up a kill.
Yeah, We do see a couple of the relics used by the Kings to try and get that one out, as well as a few ultimates of their own. CaptainTwig and BigManTingz using theirs to get in the fight. Kyrmi used his, plus his blink, but is a blink for a horrific on the opposite side for the Camelot Kings. And it's good to see that Kyrmi is staying active, even going down for that second kill over towards Variety. Was wondering if Kyrmi was just going to try and stay in the jungle, passively farm up, and kind of wait till maybe that mid-game stride, but it's trying to stay active early, at least in the left lane.
You're a Mannequin Scepter Erlang Shen.
You should.
Well, yeah, slowing down, waiting, biding your time, not exactly an option. So Kyrmi takes the only line available to him, and that's to get active. Worth noting that BigManTingz has got about a half-level lead over BennyQ in lane. Goes for a slightly more greedy build as well. We'll be stacking up that Transcendence. Seems to me that Tingz has got his eyes on that one-shot build with the Mannequin's Hidden Blade a little bit later on. I want to see more from Benny. Kyrmi has put a good deal of his attention over towards both side lanes now. 5.5 minutes in, at least 2 total ganks on both sides, but I really feel like you just got to play through that mid lane. Benny now 7 to BigManTingz' 8. Facilitate him, play through the aggression. BennyQ's there to be aggressive at this portion of the game. Maybe want to get active pretty soon.
Kyrmi will get active at the buff. No hog for Netrioid. Ult from BigManTingz will tag Kyrmi, but Kyrmi will be just fine. No further follow-up beyond there. BigManTingz just trying to stay active across the map as much as he can. And kind of going on about this one-shot build from Neith, it's something that was really potent before the 9.5 change. Do you think it still holds that same level of value even with all the changes, the extra HP and protections everybody gets?
Here's the thing about Mannequin's Hidden Blade. It's percentage. It's not like a raw, flat amount. So those TTK changes, the HP infusion that everybody's got from the durability patch, doesn't really affect that style of play because it's percentage-based. Mannequin's Hidden Blade should make up that difference. I mean, of course, you're probably going to take like one more auto attack than you would have otherwise, but as far as the value of this build, I'd say it's just about at the same as where it was.
Kyrmi's barely even allowed to farm up in his own jungle. Varieties hunting around. CaptainTwig on the way. That would make it a 3 versus 2 that Variety and CaptainTwig aren't willing to make over for just a blue buff at this stage. BennyQ's been relegated to his tower for the majority of this one. Spirit Arrow does hit, but with no ultimate from BigManTingz, and the fact that it is the Vamana with a little bit of extra HP with that second item into his build. Probably not going to kill even if he did have that World Weaver up.
I wonder what Benny is going at that second item. Maybe Toxic Blade, maybe a Witch Blade. Witch Blade would help you out with some survivability. Again, has that physical defense on it, would synergize well with the passive, but really does slow down a bit of your own build. I don't think BigManTingz, the direct lane opponent, is going to care too much about a lack of auto attack speed. He's just walking up Spirit Arrow, unravel, walk away, rinse, repeat, more so an ability caster. Neith's as close to a mage as you're going to get in the Hunter tree, so I am curious. We'll check back in with Benny as the game starts to progress. But every time I do check back in with Benny, his experience gap just keeps extending in favor of BigManTingz.
BigManTingz really get the upper hand. Already 43 stacks on his Transcendence. We'll have that one finished up in no time. Kyrmi really is putting a lot of stock on this left side of the map, whether it be to invade and try to take Netrioid, but no rotation in from Benny. Ultimate from Genetics, and an ult from BigManTingz will hit Kyrmi. Netrioid goes in with a Centaur Snipes, not enough damage to kill Kyrmi, and barely enough mana to get to that total point to find a way out. CaptainTwig finds an ult onto one. The Dueling Dragons will push CaptainTwig away, and the Valkyries should be out.
Unfortunate timing for BigManTingz' ultimate. Actually stops Genetics' Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Would have tossed him a whole lot further, but the stun midair will stop all that momentum. That said, the Camelot Kings are just absolutely dominating the entirety of this game. I hadn't looked at the top of the screen, but
yeah, I just looked up too.
4K
Yikes.
gold and about 3,000 experience. 1,000 of the gold is just on BigManTingz. He is 1/4 of the lead on his own.
And that's on a 5-man squad, so the 3,000 divided amongst the rest of them there. It's, every time we look over, I mean, like you say, it's just getting worse and worse. Is he going for Fail Not, second item?
Why not?
Might as well. You got a lead, play with it, BigManTingz. And something that, we joked about with the coach, do you put BigManTingz on certain gods because he's on ping? He said, at first we were, but now we just kind of throw him on whatever we think is going to work, tell him to tough it up, and, well, if they need a Neith and the Neith is going to perform, at least they'd be able to out-farm what BennyQ's able to do. See no problems with it.
Yeah, so far he's done exactly that. Haven't seen many opportunities for BigManTingz to shoot his auto attacks, which is where the ping would start to affect him, but again, spellcaster mid laner, not too concerned about it. We're starting to get to the point of the game where Pyromancer becomes a topic of conversation 10 seconds out from that respawn. Gotta think the Camelot Kings are just gonna go to it pretty quickly when both mid and solo are so far ahead. Bit of parity in the jungle though, not only in levels, but also in build. But a 2-level gap in mid probably just allows you to play on either one of the 2 neutral objectives if you so choose. Camelot Kings have got free reign of the field, man. It's hard to say, right? Where do you think the guys who have everything are going to go? Wherever they want.
Yeah, they can do just about no wrong at this point. Kyrmi does just proc over to level 10, so still a little bit behind CaptainTwig in that regard. Pretty much at least a half level to a level in every single lane that the Camelot Kings have up. Really only in the solo lane is where we're seeing probably the closest state of an even game. But now the Pyromancer has spawned in, the Camelot Kings go directly to it, and there's no answer by the Valkyries. This 4,000 lead isn't going to get any better for the Valks if they're not stepping up to objectives.
Yeah, and to echo your sentiment, I understand, hey, we're 4K down, it's early game, maybe we can hunker in there and just wait for mid to late. Yeah, you're at like panic point now. The Valhalla Valkyries have to show up. They can't allow any more objectives to fall. They can't allow any more of this neutral farm to go the way of the Camelot Kings. This is a death of 1,000 cuts, and we're at like 950 cuts 11 minutes into the game.
I mean, we're sitting at nearly 500 gold a minute extra that the Camelot Kings are farming over the Valkyries. That's typically the way I like to see these gold leads this early on. You know, if you're looking at 1,000 gold in 10 minutes, that's nothing. You know, extra 100 gold or whatever is there. But when you're looking at 500 to what we see before, 1,000, it's bad. Aquarius. Good thing that's not a bluestone on that Neith, because that might have been a kill for BigManTingz. Variety will clean that one up, though. It does have that third ability in that Druid stance. Cleans him up. It's a third kill for the Camelot Kings, and, well, all 3 of them on the solo laner. Now CaptainTwig caught out. Might be the first kill for the Valkyries, but Twig gonna get that shield up just in time. The Colossal Fury from BennyQ not getting quite enough damage out there. Kyrmi rooted out by Variety, and into the Baron form Variety goes. A dash through doesn't find, but the stun does, and Genetics will put himself on the board.
This is tough to watch, man. Everything the Valhalla Valkyries just try is immediately squashed by the Camelot Kings. This is just a completely different league of play between these 2 teams right now. Nearly able to turn around the kill on the CaptainTwig, but ultimate usage very good to steal away some of that defense, and then shield was maintained throughout all that CC, so easy escape once he gets over towards his own mid laner. The Camelot Kings, man, this lead is really starting to balloon. The only silver lining for the Valhalla Valkyries as of now, and it's only because I haven't looked at his experience in a little while, might be Wowy. 11 to 12 up against Netrioid. Itemization starting to get there. I believe Soul Gem probably finished up. You've got your Warlock staff at like 65 stacks or so. I'm not certain that you want to play through Huang in your mid game, but it might be the only option.
Horrific, at least onto Gamma. He's got that Dragon Transformation. He uses his own Horrific, and we'll go ult for ult with Genetics. But as soon as he lands, he gets rooted out by BigManTingz. Has some backup now, 4 versus 4, but Ultimate's gone from both the supports. I mean, that'll be at least a disperse between the 2 teams. Camelot Kings up 4-0 at this 13-minute mark. And if you want to stay to the game, maybe we'll talk about that in a moment. BigManTingz in danger, has the backflip, and now is no longer in danger. Gamma is the one in trouble. BennyQ gets stunned out by the World Weaver. Gamma finds the leap out. Genetics finds the leap in, and Netrioid finds the kill on one. BigManTingz, the kill on the next. And that 4-0 now extends to 6-0 for the Kings.
And what we're going to see from the Valhalla Valkyries over the next coming minutes is a lot of plays like that. Opportunity, dive, dive, dive. Get in there, get in that back line, find our kill. We got to do something on the map. And it might at times look like the lead is just going to continue to extend. And unfortunately, that's just the circumstance of being this far down this early in, is you have to go for these incredibly high risk and admittedly low reward plays, because you're not going to get anything. If you don't initiate risk, if you're not taking that upon yourself as a Valhalla Valkyrie right now, I mean, the game's going to continue to slip as it has over the last 14 minutes. So I'm happy to see that the Valhalla Valkyries are taking the only lines they have that could net them a win. But because of the nature of the game, MOBAs in general, it's going to be pretty low odds.
I mean, it also doesn't help that one of the biggest leads that is in the game is on Variety. He's on the other side of the map from where the rest of the Kings are currently playing. Most of the action has been over in this mid lane. Dash away by Benny and Gamma as 3 of the Kings group up. Pyromancer up in about a minute. Wowy uses his ultimate against Netrioid. Genetics has 1 leap to get out. And an 8,000 gold lead to answer the question there, but even still, now we're going beyond that 500 extra a minute that the Kings had established earlier on. And, I mean, the state of the game right now, it's what I was going to get to at the red buff, is that Netrioid has been using his ultimate to steal purple buffs up against Wowy.
He's using it to steal kills, too. I mean, he's not really concerned about having Centaurus. Centaurus has death immunity, but when you're under 0 risk of death, what's the point of holding on to it when you could just use it for damage? CaptainTwig maybe has a collapse coming his way. Benny, no blink, won't be able to close that gap, so Twig just going to walk himself out of there. Camelot Kings in a very good position to just pull the Pyromancer in about 30 seconds once it respawns. Valhalla Valkyries have got really no right stepping up to it, but they've got no right anywhere on the map, so you might as well try and attempt the steal. Kings can go ahead and just keep this threat up. BigManTingz might just get Benny.
Tier 1 tower should go down. Genetics does pick up BennyQ, roots him in place before he can even hit the ground. He is taken out. Genetics credited to the kill on that one. The Camelot Kings can even continue this push up towards the Tier 2 tower. Variety takes about 20% of his health at best in damage from Aquarius, but that's a level 16 Artio, already 3.5 items deep. That's not much kill pressure or kill potential. The Camelot Kings with a Tier 1 and now a Pyromancer. And remember you asking if it was 10,000 a moment ago? It's 11,000 now.
16 minutes in. I've said it before, but I'm going to break down what gold feels like in competitive Smite. You're at 2,000 deficit, pre-10 minutes, you're like, all right, that's not so good. 3,000, things are starting to get bad. 4,000, we have to step up. 5,000, around that 11-minute mark. Okay, I'm thinking about F6ing. 11,000, 16 minutes in. I'm discussing next game's draft. I'm talking about how we're going to keep morale up at dinner tonight. I'm worried about, I don't know, the Twitter notifications that I'm getting from my fans who are almost certainly blasting me on the timeline. This is just tough. And there's really not much analysis past it because the Camelot Kings have got such a buffer of gold and experience and time to play with that they could legitimately walk into the Valhalla Valkyries tower as a 5-man unit 3 times in a row, and the deficit would remain at around 6,000 to 7,000.
Aquarius, surrounded by 3, has to use his ultimate to get away. And it's not a great feeling when your soul laner's got to use that ultimate defensively in that instance. But with the lead the Camelot Kings have, you're 11k gold up, ample experience to boot. Might as well start up a Fire Giant. Gamma is at the backside of the fight.
He literally has to.
Not much that he can do, but it's something that he's got to do. Goes in for the jump, uses the ultimate, can't even get to it. The CC by the Camelot Kings is too much. There's the dragon, gets picked up, thrown to the wall, and can't even leap out. Netrioid credited to the kill, and the Camelot Kings further, I can't even say you're throwing salt in the wound at this point. They're just pouring acid in every single one of these cuts.
I mean, it's not as if it's like one wound. It's just open sores for the Valhalla Valkyries. They're able to at least get a Tier 1 tower on the opposite side of the map, so a bit of global gold and experience over to the Order side team. Benny caught out here, dashes aggressively. You got a couple Valks versus Twig, 3 versus 1.
Best fight they can take. Blink from CaptainTwig and a beads. Get away. Benny blinks in, finds the slow, and that's about it. So both relics from CaptainTwig. That's a win for the Valkyries. Problem is they did expend Benny's blink to get there. CaptainTwig goes back in and is winning the fight, at least for now. Trebuchet pin is good by Kyrmi.
Yes.
Could get the first pick, but Kyrmi not wanting to take up the tower might have taken it a little too long. The last shot doesn't go through. BigManTingz is here, does not have that ultimate, and CaptainTwig is ready to get back in. As soon as that double dash is available, doesn't use the second one. Instead, it's a blink from Kyrmi now to get out.
Yeah, good blink usage. Completely so Kyrmi forced to use that relic. Had he had a little bit more mana, probably could have just mink formed and used the additional movement speed to disengage. The Camelot Kings, taking their time, maneuvering the entirety of the map, can start their siege up just about anywhere. I might like 3 versus 5 odds for the Camelot Kings, so that does open the door for split push potential. I kind of like anything the Camelot Kings are doing right now, though, so hard to say what they will do. Only 2 towers still standing and plenty of gold to collect from them. About 2 minutes left on this Fire Giant power play as well. Base defense from the Valhalla Valkyries is not awful if we were anywhere close to even, but maybe pretty tough here. Pick on a Twig could go a long way.
Could. Twig's got some backup with Genetics this time. Kyrmi used the beat, so the ultimate from Genetics will pick him up, throw him in, and BigManTingz with an ult, and CaptainTwig with the follow-up auto. Turns around that kill, and the 3v1 that the Valks could have taken in mid turns into a 3v2. and a kill for the Camelot Kings. And with nobody on the left side of the map, Trebuchet there, Kings take the first Phoenix sub 20 minutes.
Hey, Benny's doing something. He's going to take a tier 1 tower, I suppose, and when you have 0 chance to defend your structures, that's really the only play you can make. Unfortunately for Benny, doesn't have enough minions to actually make that play, so instead, farming up in the jungle. Should make his way back to base soon, though. I know it's hard to defend, but losing another Phoenix might just cost you the game.
Centaurus used Wowy, chunked down, had the shell to keep a lot of his HP back. No minions means this Phoenix is taking a little bit longer to go down, and the double Emperor's armor between the two supports is keeping it even. Stun onto Variety. The Camelot Kings, they take 2 birds, and they might just go back in the fight if Gamma steps too far forward. Has a leap to get out, but it's 2 Phoenixes away for the Camelot Kings.
Doug, do me a solid. Hover Genetics right now. I don't know what his total HP is at half health, 1968. Now, give me a hover on Gamma as well. I just want to see like the comparative defense between these two teams. Yeah, they're pretty close.
About 100.
Yeah, like a half
100
HP Genetics is like 80% of a full HP Gamma.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's pretty tough. Only 3 level disparity between the two supports. Benny getting
Trying
active.
For anything. Blinks over the wall. Curse Knock, though, comes out, so BennyQ's not healing a whole lot. Genetics has his ultimate back up, by the way, and used it to throw 1 out. BennyQ healing still just a little bit. D-transforms. Ult in from BigManTingz. Netrioid low, and will be the first casualty. So Gamma finds a pick for the Valkyries, keeps them from getting goose-egged. Wowy might be able to find another one on BigManTingz. Dragon's just a little bit off the mark, and BigManTingz makes it out. Aquarius will not make it as CaptainTwig finds the double kill, and Wowy and Gamma, the dual lane of the Valks, the last ones to hold out, the last ones standing against the might of 3 Kings. A D-transform from Gamma. The Kings will just ignore him and go ahead and pick on Wowy and take out the Hunter. Triple kill for Twig.
Enhanced minion waves working their way into that Titan room. The Valhalla Valkyries try and set up their ambush. Actually do take down Netrioid, who had access to beads and Centaurus there, but a pick nonetheless. Can Gamma defend his base? No.
No ultimate. Gonna be game here for the Camelot Kings. It's a matter of, do they want to get 1 more kill to their name? Do they want to make it 14 on the slash line? Well, they're doing it oh so casually. Kyrmi and Benny have spawned in, but Gamma goes down with massive fire minion waves from the mid and the left. Camelot Kings will close out game number 1, 22.5 minutes, and the Valkyries back to the drawing board for game 2.
Complete redraw, I think. Let's not salvage
Maybe
anything.
buy a new board too.
Yeah, new board, new markers, new dry eraser, whatever it's going to take. Everything has to change. Best of luck to the desk to break that one down. I don't know what I would say.
And Camelot Kings loaded into the game and just played the game better than the Valkyries.
They like loaded in with a 5K lead, man.
It really felt like that at just any given moment. The Camelot Kings were just ready to pick a fight, win a fight. They took 2 on the right-hand side, and from that point out, Aquarius couldn't do anything to Variety. Kyrmi couldn't do anything to Variety, and then once Variety joined the rest of the team, well, they couldn't kill him. How are they expecting to kill everybody else? Silver lining for the Valkyries, at least they didn't get blanked in the game, able to at least find 1 pick throughout that, but 1 kill is not enough to bring this game back when you're 16,000+ gold down that far in. Game number 1 goes handily to the Camelot Kings. We'll see if the Valkyries can bounce back right after this.
I be stuck in my head, think I need to escape. Feels like I'm waiting there for the same. My mom used to say that no matter how famous, at the end of the day, you only wanna feel safe. But I'd rather walk into the space to see if you're still awake.
Camelot Kings execute a near flawless game plan in game number 1. The only flaw, the one death that was suffered by the entirety of the Camelot Kings roster. But other than that, game 1 felt simple for one of the cleanest teams in the league right now. And gaming can feel simple for you at home as well if you grab yourself an Alienware PC. Not only gaming, but any other content creation that you might have going on, made easier with Alienware, and our job's made easier here with Alienware as well. Head on over to SMITEGame.com/Alienware. Use code AWSMITE09, and you'll be able to grab yourself discounts on select Alienware gear. So as always, thanks to Alienware for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League, powering us, powering our players, and powering exciting games like we got in game number 1 of the set between the Camelot Kings and the Valhalla Valkyries. Gormif's not wrong. I mean, this is the style of game.
Yes.
It is very easy to just boil down to the arguably cleanest team in the SPL right now, the cleanest in-game team in the SPL right now, up against a team that has a lot to figure out as far as their own identity when it comes to macro play, shot calling, things like that. This tends to happen, and it's exactly what happens here in game number 1. Camelot Kings had a game plan, they executed it, the Valks had no answers.
I think Mifflin covered it incredibly well during the cast as well, which was the description of like how gold feels, right? He said, when you're down, let's say 2,000 at 10 minutes, doesn't feel too great, but you can come back from it. 3,000 feels a little worse, you're starting to notice it, but it's still something that is within managing reason. 4,000 to 5,000, 6,000, like as you further that number at the 10-minute mark, it gets to be to the point where you're really hurt. 5,000 is where you're starting to think, okay, how do we stipend this in a way where we don't have to lose the next team fight, or how do we make sure that we can get an objective, something, stem the bleeding. 5K is maybe like some of the worst where you feel like you're fighting back. I feel like 6,000 up, you're starting to talk about game number 2 already,
right?
Because your early game has just gotten so far out of hand that playing catch up would require the game to go to 50 minutes and would require the other team to absolutely just, hurl it. And there was a point, 1, they were up 11K around that mark, but 2, where Mifflin had said, like, not only could they have all 5-man run into the tower 3 times, probably given the kills to the Valkyries, and still not had it really affected, taking that gold from 11 to 12K down to 6K. But also there was a point where it was highlighted that you could probably 3v5 successfully as the Kings. And when you have that much of a lead, it becomes a lot easier to just do whatever you want on the map. Gold Furies, Fire Giants, any objective on the map is suddenly yours. Team fights aren't really team fights. You just get to walk in. When you have sub 10K damage on 4 players, the only one able to get a little higher than that is Wowy on that mage. Meanwhile, Netrioid, like, surprisingly enough, Netrioid's the one who had the lowest amount of damage here.
You don't have to do anything.
You get a really good game out of the right-hand side of the map. The Kings, they just burst forward with a ton of strength here. I want to say not the complete unexpected result, but then again, if you're the Valks here, you're looking to try and clean that up a little bit more.
Right.
Try and take some chunks away from the Kings.
Right, again, it's not, that...
It wasn't the Valks playing poorly. It was
look,
the Kings playing cleanly.
Look, we'll get into picks and bans for game 2 and see if the Valks change up their strategy at all. There's not gonna be just a light switch one day that gets flipped for this Valkyries team, right?
It's gonna be gradual, like.
Yes,
literally climbing the mountain. Right?
They're good enough SMITE players that yes, if they really show up and a team doesn't, the other team will lose. That's what happened with the Leviathans in the first phase. It happens, but. Coming into this set saying the Valks have suddenly figured it out for this set in particular after getting O2'd by the Jade Dragons. Anything can happen, but what we've talked about wanting to see are the small in-game changes at least. If you're going to lose the game, make it more competitive. Right now you're losing games by a lot. Let's start, next step is losing games by a little bit.
Yeah.
Next step is coin toss games, and then winning games by a little bit, and then winning games by a lot. It's a sliding scale. And so moving from the losing games by a lot on a consistent basis to losing games by a little bit on a consistent basis is the next step here.
I've got good news for the Valkyries.
Go ahead.
Well, maybe not immediate good news, but next week, mid-season, is going to help kind of be a little reset button for a lot of the current, I want to say, strengths, right? You're going to have new items coming into it, a lot of changes that are going to be happening. And so it's a chance to kind of wash away. I mean, you know, you're on a 9-set, what feels like it could be very soon a 10-set loss streak. That, I think, going into the next couple of weeks of play is going to be a nice refresher for a lot of these teams and trying to figure out how to topple it, what kind of new items, what new changes are maybe going to take the league by storm. And if you can get there, maybe not even first, if you can just get it under your belt, if it fits the Valk's playstyle a little bit better,
Yep.
we might start seeing some big turnarounds.
Agreed. We have seen growth from this team, right? If you talk about that slidey scale that I just described, the Valks have started to move it, right? And so I think there is some good for the Valkyries to hang their hat on, but haven't quite gotten to the coin flip, 50-50 style of
Is it
of
bad
games
the
yet.
visual I had for your sliding scale was, the Price is Right, like the mountain guy, like going up
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
right.
but like it's not the same. Like if you get to the top, like good. I don't think you fall off really hard the way that he
No.
does.
No, yeah, you don't
When's the
quite
last
take
time you
tumble.
watched The Price is Right, Dave?
Oh, man. It's Drew Carey right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, not with him around. I think Bob Barker used to be the guy.
It was Bob Barker
Yeah,
for a long time.
then.
Then
There was somebody between Bob Barker and Drew Carey, I think.
Was there?
Maybe I'm wrong. It was old, though. It was like classic game show network television
Yeah.
where it's on in the
and
middle
you're
of
like
the day
you're
or whatever.
sick. So
Right.
like in high school, probably
Yeah.
you stayed home.
Yeah, that's what you got.
Yeah, same.
All right, we'll catch back up with picks and bans for game number 2, though. Why don't we? As the Emoja, the Chiron taken away from Netrioid. I actually think that's a somewhat impactful ban here from the
Yes.
Valks, as well as the Xing, which has seen continued success here at the SPO level. So a couple big pivots for the Valk score. And I think forcing Netrioid on, even though the Chiron didn't do it, wasn't it in game 1. It was good, right? But it didn't.
Yeah.
Netrioid didn't really need to do much. I think still forcing a different style of composition from the Kings never going to be a bad thing.
Not at all. And you get yourselves the Khepri this way as well by forcing some different bans. And that opens up a lot. I think, when you're looking at some of these teams, the Kings, it's one of the most banned gods against them. And top teams, when they have a Khepri, it becomes even more difficult to try and find wins because they are now in a position where they have a 6th life and they were already playing incredibly well, right? So it's like now they're playing well, and if anything goes wrong, they get to fix that mistake. Here for the Valks, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier for the Scarabs, it's kind of that reset button that lets you not just make those mistakes, but kind of get a second chance, right? It opens up an opportunity where, damn, they just jumped on a guy and they murdered him real big. And now we're gonna try to rectify that. Single target revive. Let's get this 5-on-5 and see if we can fix the mistakes we just made.
Yep. Huang, stick with something that worked from game 1. Again, could be Wowy, could be BennyQ, but actually has been Wowy playing Huang out of duo here a bit as of late. It always feels like Genetics, one of the most talented supports in the league, has been playing so consistently here this phase. Never feels great that if you ban a Xing, again, could be Genetics, could be solo for variety. You ban a Yemoja, and then the pick that Genetics ends up getting is also one of his best, on the same tier as either of those other 2 picks in the Ymir. Tough for the Valkyries,
Well,
just as disruptive.
Even so, assuming the Ymir wasn't even available. And there's Terra,
Terra, right.
There's so many other Guardians. Hell, even the Cerberus, man.
Cerberus.
I think anything on that Guardian
Ganesh.
tab, I'm gonna be more than happy with the Kings picking it up.
Horus,
Yeah, I'm just
going.
it even goes beyond the
Sylvanas, right?
It goes beyond the Guardian tab, man.
He's good. He's hard to ban out.
So yeah, it's gonna be one of those things, and that comes into that conversation. We have it every now and then where it's like, is it worth banning 5 gods against a single player if you know that the 6th god they're going to pull out is still going to win?
If you were banning one player out 5 times on the Camelot Kings, who do you think it would end up being? I think it might end up being Genetics.
I think you're more than capable of banning
No,
Genetics.
I know you're.
I think you could get 10 bans and still try to ban
I think
Genetics.
you could ban out. You could ban 5.
Do you mean practically or because I think if I took enough shots at the current god pool for Netrioid,
yeah, okay,
that
fair.
would start
Sure.
to limit it. I don't think every single one of those players has a very just a wide god pool. God Ocean, let's just call it. I
Right.
mean, it's massive over there for him. So
Yeah, that's true.
I think maybe I'd shoot at some of the side lanes because that feels like it might be easier to control meta wise. But realistically, nobody. I could definitely fill 5 bans for Genetics easy though.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I guess that's the ultimate question. I mean, if you levy that question, the answer is always the guy who's got the smallest god pool, because then he's the most uncomfortable by 5 bans going that way. But yeah, I don't know if anyone on the Kings
But
is too worried about that.
It's that ugly balancing point where it's let's say you lean real hard into banning out someone like Genetics or someone that like maybe Variety or in the mid. Then all of a sudden, like the Amus and Cobb, your Chirons, your Chernobog, like you're letting so much still through.
Well, that's just the that's even though this is a silly question, it's the real detriment of having to ban out against a team like the Kings. On the flip side, a bit of everyone getting banned out on the Valkyries. The Daji, I think, a pretty impactful ban away from Kyrmi in the first wave, ends up getting the Nemesis, which has been traditionally a pretty good look for Kyrmi, so I don't mind it. The Huang, again, as we've mentioned, has been a Wowy pick here as of late. Cthulhu being hovered. Cthulhu being locked in. The question is always, is there enough shred, burn to get through this Cthulhu? And Gore, there's a Merlin and an Osiris on the other side, and then an ADC still to be picked. I think there's enough burn.
Yeah.
Later
You could have
game.
probably just stopped at Merlin. Like Merlin burns through things incredibly well, and not just with the fire stance. Like he's just really good in terms of damage.
Heimdallr will do it.
The CC control you're going to have from an Artio and a Ymir. You mentioned the shred from an Osiris. Heimdallr as well, just hitting heavy autos. And they should be able to deal with the Cthulhu. Now here's the real question. Can they do it twice? Because that, well, I guess 1.5 times, because that's going to be the real late game question. Kill the Cthulhu, and then if he gets rezzed by a Khepri, can you kill it again? Yes is going to be my answer. Also, it depends on how the late game looks, right? If they're even, which I think is definitely a very difficult task to amass here based on game number 1. But if they're even, I still think the Kings are going to be capable to do it. If they are anywhere near the amount of controlling as they were in game 1, then this Cthulhu doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, look, you don't have the Neith sending World Weavers from mid, right? I mean, it's more of a if BMT is played around on this Merlin kind of thing, you'll scale up into the late game, you'll get some good burn then. So it's not, you're losing one of the, if you're the Kings, and you're the Valks really in particular, you've taken away one of the active choices that the Kings can make as far as early ganks, right? You take the Neith away. And at this point, you're just forcing Twig on this Osiris to find the ganks on his own. So I think you've stopped the gap a bit in one area if you're the Valkyries. But I do think there's some good options still for Twig to find value early in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, you're just going to have a lot of pressure, right? I think immediately over maybe Cthulhu, I want to say is like harder to kill, but you've got a lot of CC and at least some burn for him right there. Then you start to look towards some of the other gods that they've got locked in. I think Huang is someone who can get away pretty easily, but Osiris can chase him down after level 5 pretty quickly. Yep. And so I think that's going to be a pressure point for them. Mid lane as well, or just in general, I should say, if it's the Ullr or the Huang, is going to be someone that they can kind of bully out there. And so Khepri becomes, I think, the prize pick for the Valks, because if you can force that ult early as the Kings, a lot of their strategy falls apart and you can just start ripping through anybody else. But if you can't, Khepri's going to be the one who saves everybody.
Yeah, Gore, I agree. I think Khepri so important for this Valkyries team here this game. I also think the Ullr, which has often been banned out here at the SPL level, adds a new dynamic to this Valkyries roster that we haven't been able to see because Ullr has just been that banned out. The ability for late game burst to ride the wave, in a way, Gore. I think whether mid or duo.
That was just me stretching, man.
Is that not a...
Well, I mean, it is a wave.
No shot Goremizer stretches like that. I don't believe you. In the game number 2 between the Valhalla Valkyries and the Camelot Kings.
Should be an interesting one at the least. The Valhalla Valkyries gotta stay even this time. Can't fall behind early against the Kings because we saw what the Kings can do with even the smallest leads early game. But Mifflin, I think that the Valkyries have built themselves a decent team to try and alleviate some of that pressure that the Valkyries had, or that the Kings had previously on them in that game. But then again, man, the Camelot Kings, the draft they put together is just really signature picks across the board. BigManTingz on this Merlin. We saw what he did earlier on in the phase. CaptainTwig on the Osiris. He's been running this god for what feels like at least 1.5 years at this point. And Genetics on this Ymir has made some scary plays in just the last couple weeks.
In game 1, I would have argued just based off draft, you're probably expecting the Valhalla Valkyries to get pressure in mid with Vamana. Now with Ullr, have to get pressure in mid. It's the only thing that would really make any sense to me as to why you're taking that pick for yourself. So keep your eyes on BennyQ, Bluestone, Transcendence, the standard stuff. There, up against a Merlin, not only wave pressure, but kill potential. So I expect to see Kyrmi making the rotation early. But with that said, with the jungle start the Camelot Kings have gone for, CaptainTwig could try and do exactly what we saw in Game 1, make an early rotation over towards this Cthulhu. If Aqua was the target early in the previous match, Cthulhu very much so used to being the target in just about every single match. The blue buff still hovering nearby. CaptainTwig also here has got access to the blink, may look for a bit of a gank here. Seems like Aqua privy to it. Will go ahead and play inside of his own tower. So already a better start for the Valhalla Valkyries. Otherwise, your duo lane has okay fight potential. As long as Gamma doesn't die, Wowy should be okay. Gonna get dropped down to about a half HP here. Taking a whole lot of auto attacks just to return some of that damage. I'm thinking the Camelot Kings have got pressure in both side lanes, but the mid should probably go to the Valks.
Yeah, the mid with this Ullr, we'll have to see what BennyQ can do on this pick. For now, him and Kyrmi, we're grouping up, taking the Oracle Harpies. And now with the mid spawning in, should be at least a split of the mid Harpy farm. The Valkyries will definitely need to get for themselves as much as they can. Every little bit of farm this early on, extremely important for the Valkyries, because, as I said earlier, the Camelot Kings, if you give them an inch when it comes to farm, they will take a mile. And they're going to take this left side Harpy camp. Wowy, just a little off the mark on the fire. A little bit too late to steal that one away.
So the Camelot Kings doing a good job just playing with their pressure. Huang, we talked a whole lot about how he's got really high kill potential in the early game. He does, but with a Khepri, not so much. That damage that just hit genetics, that's all of it. That's all you got. He's just able to walk himself out of there, maintains the Heavenly, and holds on to his 3 health potions as well. I'm expecting now potentially some rotations over towards the duo lane from the Camelot Kings, considering Gamma just lost out on his beads, and Twig is playing a god that can really make use of his CC in that regard. But Twig is just hovered on that right-hand side. Blue buff's desync, gonna drop down his own, and then potentially rotate over, try and steal Aqua's. Kyrmi got a tough task. Cthulhu's cool and all, but until level 5, he doesn't do a whole lot.
No, just mostly has to use the entirety of his kit to even clear a wave at this point. Though, that's kind of the story for most of the Guardians. No invade from CaptainTwig. Kyrmi, thanks to helping get that desync timer between him and Aquarius earlier on. May have made it a little less inviting for CaptainTwig to go to that side of the map. But I think you're right to point out the fact that Gamma is lacking beads after the previous fight. A wall from genetics puts Gamma in a little bit of a dangerous spot. Netrioid goes in, but it's going back and forth between his targets. Split damage onto Wowy and Gamma means that neither of them are going to take too much poke. And instead, Netrioid and Genetics, who are both down to half.
And Netrioid got 1 potion left. Genetics now out. Potions expended for Gamma, but it's still 1 for Wowy. So HP deficit probably favoring the Valhalla Valkyries as of now, especially with the HP shields that Gamma is spawning up with his passive. Should be able to keep him at least relatively safe in this lane. Camelot Kings playing real far up here. Might just make it easy for Kyrmi to rotate his way through.
He's got his push, but as soon as Kyrmi comes over to the lane, he's going to go ahead and back. You even see Netrioid throw the shield, or throw the sword up into the jungle, so maybe hinting at the fact that Kyrmi could have been over there, at least for the Kings. Wowy, with this Huang, will at least be able to get some good wave clear now that level 5 is through. A couple of points into his primary clear ability makes it a little bit easier for him in the lane to at least maintain parity.
This is a much better pace for the Valhalla Valkyries. Why this time in Game 1, it was a 3,000 gold lead for the Camelot Kings. So keeping the experience largely equal, gold still slightly in favor of the Camelot Kings. Is as if they've got a first blood without actually killing anybody so far. So the Valhalla Valkyries doing their best to hold their own. Have got decent scaling come late game as well. Very standard composition, top to bottom. Sure, your hunters in mid, your mages in duo, but once you're 5 stacked, it's just a hunter and a mage regardless. So I am excited for the Valhalla Valkyries. A much better look for them this time around. The Camelot Kings, on the other hand, have just now started to hit some of their significant power spikes. BigManTingz finished up that Book of Thoth. Genetics can start working on stacking up that Thieves and Golden Blade for CaptainTwig. Generally, when you see that Bumba's Dagger first slot, I start to think that it's going to be that Stone-Cutting Sword, but instead, a bit more of a farm pace for CaptainTwig. Could make it so that the Camelot Kings continually push their lead across the map. Greater Scorpions, both going their way. You can start talking about the mid-camps. Those have, for the most part, been going to the Camelot Kings as well. Oracles, so far, only once dropped, and that was by the Camelot Kings too. So the gold lead, maybe not as extravagant as it was in Game 1, still certainly there and still certainly accumulating for the Chaos team.
Yeah, it's 1,000 without any death as of yet. But nearly 6 minutes in and still falling behind just to neutral farm alone. Not the place that you want to be for the Valkyries, but definitely a much better position than from their previous matchup. As far as builds are concerned, everything pretty standard across the board. Book of Thoth, maybe the stranger one for BigManTingz. Typically it's been the Warlock Staff if a single stacking item has been going the way, but values to having a little bit more of that mana, a little bit of that extra power boost that comes from it.
Yeah, maybe he just gets the Warlock Staff right afterward. We've seen that that build has become very popular, not only on the Kukulkans, but also we saw Ven playing it with Hell. Does have Sands of Time at least, so my major complaint with that build being lack of CDR, a bit alleviated.
Kyrmi getting aggressive on genetics, gets the ultimate out of him, and all ultimates still up for the Valkyries. BigManTingz walks over to the ice stance, and that's called now for CaptainTwig to go in. Kyrmi uses his ultimate, but Kyrmi is getting batted away, stunned out by CaptainTwig, and needs a moment to find a way out. Gamma uses his ultimate. Kyrmi will go down to the Gold Fury, so that way it procs. But is that the best way that you want to go? CaptainTwig still has ultimate, but not willing to dive to the back line of the jungle and the Valkyries.
That red buff spawning very shortly. The Camelot Kings got timer on it now, but have reset themselves pretty mightily. Heads up play from Kyrmi to walk into the Gold Fury, make sure you proc that Scarab's Blessing. Does leave the Oracles up, so the Camelot Kings able to circle themselves back. Red buff will not be invaded this time, secured by BennyQ. And the Kings are just slowly it's almost like a boa constrictor, just around the map, slowly accumulating that lead. What was just 1,000 has become 1,200. Check back in 2 minutes later, assuming there's no kills. Maybe we're talking 1,500. But experience has remained largely equal across the battlefield. And at this portion of the game, about 1,000 gold, not really a massive deal. Experience much more important of the two slash lines, or stat lines rather. And the Valhalla Valkyries doing a good job making sure they're not falling too far behind.
Now, I said mostly standard across the board for the builds. I was waiting to see where Netrioid would go. Typically, it has been Transcendence as a first start for some of these hunters, but he's gone for Dominance early on. And while Heimdallr's abilities do some decent damage, the main brunt of it does come from that increased damage on just the basic attacks, and now going to be infusing that a little bit more by picking up this Dominance.
Yeah, Heimdallr is like the only hunter who's got a basic attack chain, so that massive auto attack, if you build up some crit a little bit later on, just really does start to deal a whole lot of damage. Netrioid sniffs out the rotation from Gamma and starts to make his way back towards base. Benny, though, taking a good deal of damage.
Has beads and holds on to them patiently. Gamma on the rotation in, dashes away, but now his dash is gone, tethered in, and loses beads a little bit early. Should still get stunned by CaptainTwig if he's in a range, and he is, but he's already under the tier 1 tower. No further follow-up, and all ultimates still up for everybody, aside from BigManTingz, who's waiting for his stance switch to come back, but still no deaths just yet. Nearly 9 minutes in, the Valkyries holding out, but that lead's still slowly trickling up for the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, I wonder. The Camelot Kings probably waiting for this Pyromancer to spawn up. Best objective secure on the map, unironically, genetics with this Shards of Ice ultimate. So between BigManTingz and CaptainTwig, should be able to burn that pretty quick. 1v1, Netrioid up against Kyrmi. I don't think Netrioid's got a whole lot of kill potential here. Kyrmi doesn't have a whole lot either, but did have the potential to lose out on too much of his HP. So will disengage immediately afterward. You're at least taking the ultimate off Netrioid. That's a line of safety loss. Now Wowy doesn't have to be so worried in the lane. That's going to keep his beads available. No real way for Netrioid to force those without the ultimate. So good rotation from Kyrmi. Just buys his ADC a little bit of space.
I think we need to get more sports skins for Heimdallr. The amount of different like bats or things like that you can use for him to get that ultimate, even give him a golfing skin, give him a 9-iron, something like that. I think we could do more with that, because that ultimate, while it's not the flashiest thing, just looks so satisfying.
Not the flashiest.
It's definitely flashy, but no, it's not the flashiest.
He sends you through the 9 realms.
Well, it's flashy for the person who's getting sent through the realms. Watching up top, I mean, all he does is just pick up and swing, but
that's pretty cool.
It's definitely one of the more satisfying to see hit. I mean, just seeing that full power swing, throw somebody off the map, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe like a hockey skin. I'm with you, man. I'm sure Dave, if he were here, would be talking about a lacrosse skin or something like that. So
British fans and
I
people in Europe start saying cricket.
Oh yeah,
skin.
cricket. I mean, that's
that.
that's a sport, I guess.
You guess?
I guess. In some parts of the world.
Well, back into the game. Not much has happened. Still no deaths. 10.5 minutes in. But even without those deaths, the Camelot Kings This was a death by 1,000 cut style of play that you were talking about in game number 1.
Bro,
we're not at the 950 cuts just yet, but we're slowly getting there. 2,400 gold, make it 3K once this goes down. And now the Camelot Kings, not on the side of the map for the Gold Fury. The Valkyries with a decent answer. Do they have the damage to take this down without anybody getting there?
The Kings are
Doesn't
going.
seem that anybody on the Kings even know that it's happening. Netrioid walking over. The fire good. Netroid's got to get in there quick to try and steal it away. But the Valkyries answer back with their own objectives. So Pyro to the Kings, but gold to the Valkyries.
Yeah, I think the Kings saw Benny and Min were like, no way they've got the damage. Not with a Huang, but left alone for long enough, anybody can do the Gold Fury, and the Valhalla Valkyries have done exactly that. A very intelligent response. The Camelot Kings taking the Pyromancer on the other side. So gold lead just about where it was before either of the objectives gone down, but considering the pacing and control on the map the Camelot Kings have had, and just the fact that the Valhalla Valkyries do get the more valuable of the two, a great play for the Order side. But even with it, the gold lead is still slowly going in favor of the Camelot Kings. That's got to be Obelisk diff, maybe a little bit of neutral camps, Greater Scorpions for the most part going their way. Totem Akut, 7 Totem Akut. I mean, yeah, that's going to happen. It's Cthulhu.
Yeah.
I mean, Cthulhu's not getting those.
Right. But even still, we got to remember, that's 125 gold every single Totem of Ku. That's just free gold going over to the Camelot Kings. Almost 1,000 of their gold lead has just come from that one objective alone. Netrioid under fire, gets pushed through, uses his ultimate to get out of the dueling dragons. Doesn't have any backup of his own. Where's this Bifrost going to take him? Oh, right behind, but he's rooted in place, barely. Gets back in there, but able to make it out. Didn't have any backup, but didn't need it.
Yeah, Gamma holds on to his ultimate because there was no fight back from Netrioid. Wowy, though, dueling dragons expended and able to push a couple of waves into that tower. So Netrioid should lose out on a bit of his own lead. Good presence from the Valhalla Valkyries on that duo side of the map. Not much to fight over on map in general right now. Pyro and Gold Fury both dead. The only tower that's really taken any damage is on that solo lane side. Variety can continually put some damage in towards it just by pushing the wave forward, but Aquarius is hitting that tipping point where the Mire can start clearing out that wave on its own. Should be able to stop the bleed on his own tower. So the Camelot Kings are going to keep up exactly what they have been doing, which is pressure around these Greater Scorpions. CaptainTwig already nearby, going to try and take it for himself, and the rest of the Camelot Kings and Variety already there as well. Valhalla Valkyries, I suppose, just don't value the Greater Scorpion as much as the Camelot Kings do, but that is a good lion's share of the lead as well. It's Totem Aku's and Scorpions separating them.
Netrioid versus Wowy. Root and Fire are already down for Wowy. Netrioid not recognizing that there's a gank coming, or maybe he does. Gets into the Bifrost, uses the bead so the dragons don't push him out. And the Camelot Kings decide to go to the right side of the map. Aquarius body blocked by Genetics in the ultimate. Nowhere for the monstrous Cthulhu to go. CaptainTwig, 14 minutes in, finds first blood for the Kings.
And what can the Kings do with this space? Tier 1 tower on right, sure, could be a target, but maybe not valuable enough for the Camelot Kings to actually take. It would make it easier for Aqua to just push that or keep that wave at his own Tier 2 tower. So instead, just going to let the minion wave poke some damage in and zone off. Variety on the chase, good blink.
Finds the blink, gets the beads from Wowy. Celestial Flight might not be there just yet. The cripple field is making sure that he's slowed out. Wowy, couple hits away, uses the Aegis. Stun is good, one more hit. And the Scarab's Blessing to pop back through. Variety can't get past Gamma. And Wowy gets the flight back in. Meanwhile, there's a 1v1 between Netrioid and Kyrmi. And now Gamma stuck in the middle of 3 will be 4 when Netrioid joins over. But it's going to be Genetics to find the kill in the second for the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, like, the idea from Gamma is, hey, I can't let Wowy die. It just can't be the case, but I'm not certain that you needed to abduct there. Could have probably just used to create space for yourself. Easy turnaround for the Camelot Kings immediately afterward. Tier 1 tower in the dual lane gonna fall down as well, and that gold is quickly approaching where it was originally. 16 minutes in, though. What was that, like 11,000?
Yeah, it was 11,000 last
Okay,
game. So
yeah,
they're
never
only
mind.
half.
Never mind.
We're barely halfway to what we were in
Valhalla
game
Valkyries
1.
making strides.
Keeping it in at least. Finding CaptainTwig in the jungle could be a big pick, but not enough damage. A stun onto Kyrmi. Oh, CaptainTwig walks into the mire, eats the root, and has to use the ultimate to get out. Aquarius had the sense of madness, but Now spotting out Genetics on the rotation in, not going to continue to chase. Instead, it'll just be a blue buff invade by the Valkyries. They'll keep themselves back. Netrioid and Wowy, again, Wowy with no beads, no Aegis sent through the realms. Netrioid will be ready for him on landing. Celestial Flight will cover not much distance. Wowy gets the root, gets the dueling dragons, it's off the mark. Netrioid will Bifrost in, and one more auto, one more ability, anything from Netrioid should get that kill. Even a single tick from Gjallarhorn would be enough. Maybe he can find it with the sword.
Oh, he's
Will
out.
he?
Oh,
Does
he's
get the
out.
Gjallarhorn? Not gonna find it. Netrioid doesn't have the distance. I can't believe Wowy made it out of that.
Yeah, good stuff from Wowy. Great positioning around those walls, playing with the geometry, and now it's Netrioid who finds himself in no man's land.
Backing in enemy territory. Bifrost back up. And that puts him all the way back
That's
to his
so
side
frustrating.
of the map. That's honestly such a tilter.
Yeah, if I'm Kyrmi there, I'm like, oh my god, yeah, you got me. Okay, nice. Nice global teleport.
Nice prank.
Yeah, good job, dude. Very sick. At least able to take the shell off of Netrioid, so Wowy also finding some value there. Benny loses the beads. Camelot Kings take the Pyro, and this time the Valkyries not around to do the Gold Fury in exchange. Only Fury grouped up on now by the Camelot Kings. Wowy, Gamma, both nearby. Aqua making a slow-tation across the map. Could be a true 5-on-5 engagement.
Gamma the first one here. Aquarius and Wowy right behind, but look who's behind all of them. It's Variety on the bear. Catches out Wowy, the Fury bouncing back and forth before it does get leashed. Aquarius gets frozen, uses the beads, and descends into Madness to the backline. Will use Netrioid as his primary target. Genetics low and Mana doesn't have much for this fight. Kyrmi rooted out in place. CaptainTwig low, jumps out, but the Sever right after from Aquarius will take him down. First kill for the Valkyries in this game, but Variety is full HP, fending off 5, gets rooted out. Benny jumps in against them, but not much that BennyQ can do up against 4.
Yeah, Benny is psychotic for making that play. They did not have vision on the Camelot Kings in the Tier 2 tower. If they were a little bit further forward, would have been a turnaround. But great play from specifically Aqua to separate that fight. Was able to get right into that back line. Descent into Madness, very good, and does force Twig into a very poor position. That's the knock-up just on time for the burst damage from BennyQ over the wall. Twig had access to the beads, but once you're already in the air, not much you can do about it, and does immediately fall down afterward. That said, the Valhalla Valkyries trade out a whole lot of their HP, a whole lot of their resources in taking that fight. So the Fury remains standing, and just one kill doesn't really make a dent in the charts.
No, still 4,500 gold and XP to the Camelot Kings. At least BennyQ able to maintain at least a somewhat even level, actually slightly ahead of BigManTingz as far as the XP. BigManTingz just ticked over to level 17 during that fight. So for the Valkyries, much, much better position than they were in game number 1. I mean, by this point in game 1, we were pushing Phoenix lines for the Camelot Kings. The team fight of the Valkyries doesn't look too bad, Miffle. I mean, as you highlighted, with Aquarius up to the front line, the Kings didn't really have a whole lot going for them in that last team fight.
Now, Aqua's also got a lead as well, 17 to Variety, 16. Gamma separated and taking a whole lot.
Oh no, Genex finds a freeze onto Gamma. Did not use the beads, used the ultimate on himself now, so that's going to be down for the Valkyries in this fight. Netrioid teleports away. Aquarius still batting away in the backline, but he's slowly starting to lose some of that HP. BennyQ caught out, no beads, has his Aegis, finds a lead, but a wall for Genetics. Blocks off Aquarius' escape path. He is stuck with the 5 of the Camelot Kings on the wrong side of the wall. BennyQ has his Aegis still, uses it now. Variety not going to chase in. Instead, they've turned their sights to Kyrmi, who's found the blink out.
Variety, Twig, both low. Netrioid taking a bit of damage. BennyQ steps up to deal that damage, but steps up too far. BigManTingz credit for the kill. Now Wowy isolated, gets into the float. Wall just off the mark from Genetics, so Wowy maintains his own life. The Camelot Kings in separating Gamma at the offset of that engagement, forcing out the Scarab's Blessing on the support himself, just removes all capacity for the Valhalla Valkyries to commit to their own dive. Aqua steps up, trying to buy some space, but the Camelot Kings, when 5 stacked, can deal with him at this portion of the game. Reset from Genetics. He's not willing to die for his team to get Gold Fury. Rightfully so.
He's telling the team, I'm not dying for this.
They wanted him to.
They were
leaving him. I think they were legitimately trying to make him die, but Camelot Kings, they get the objective, and that's the difference. Valhalla Valkyries find their 1 pick and reset. The Camelot Kings get their 1 pick and take the objective and the lead even further in their favor.
Camelot Kings once again with control in this game. Aquarius And BennyQ may be the silver linings for the teams during these fights, as they've been able to keep even throughout the majority of this. Is the first time in this game that BennyQ has really fallen down in XP up against BigManTingz. But I mean, BigManTingz is at the point where he is aggressively flickering into enemy territory at this point, and that's because he knows he's got the backup between Genetics and between Variety to make that kind of a play. BennyQ's got his beads back though for this next fight, and well, I don't really know what that says about BennyQ. Maybe he'll still continue to play super risky, but at least he's got some kind of extra safety net to get out this time.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't had the Scarab's Blessing. Gamma was forced to use that on himself in the last 2 engagements, so beads should find some value. Because the Gold Fury fight went so long, the Camelot Kings won't have to wait very long to start up the next POI. Already grouped on the right-hand side of the map. 4 stack from the Kings, and Netrioid on the way. Pyromancer gotta be the target. Variety dealing as much damage as he can to Aqua beforehand. Good wall.
And transformation out of BennyQ to the fire stance. CaptainTwig is there. Scarab's Blessing onto Aqua, which means that once again, Gamma won't have it for the next team fight. A pull onto Variety, but Variety's rather tanky on this Artio. Dashes away and then goes back in, finds a triple heal, but he's taking a decent bit of damage just from this Huang, just from BennyQ alone as well. And the Camelot Kings can reset as the Pyromancer has come back and will go down just as quickly as he came back to the planet.
That might have been the coolest wall we've seen this match so far, just the peel wall to make sure that Variety, who had stepped up to buy space for that tower to go down, does get out. Kyrmi needs to get out now.
Kyrmi stuck by yet another wall by Genetics. Does not have the dash available just yet and doesn't have any life available to him anymore. Aquarius in the back line. Big root from Wowy, but Wowy doesn't have a way to get out of this fight now. His flight is gone, and Netrioid is the one to pick up the first kill for him. Genetics low, but Genetics is still walking up with BigManTingz. Finds a wall on Gamma. Aquarius left all alone against 3, and Netrioid finds the double. BennyQ burned away by BigManTingz, but not enough for the kill. 3 Valkyries gone, 5 strong for the Kings, and Fire Giant right around the corner.
Man, you might as well call Genetics just like China, and the entirety of the Valkyries are like the Mongols, man. They can't get through these walls. They're great. They're just great walls. The Camelot Kings in a pretty good position as well, have finally got themselves over that 10K lead up to 12 with Fire Giant on all 5 and a couple of towers left on the map to just collect gold from. I feel like we're in a pretty similar position casters-wise as we were in Game 1. 20-some odd minutes in the game. Did the game actually go this long? I don't remember.
It ended, I think, at 22:30.
Okay, all right. Well, a little bit longer to get here, but the exact same destination. The Camelot Kings in the driver's seat completely can start up their siege in earnest, and the siege potential is incredibly high. You've got space control from Genetics and Variety, who have shown very little respect to the damage output of the Valhalla Valkyries. Netrioid on a standard hunter can make pretty short work of these towers, but the defense of the Valkyries is almost completely contingent on Benny to keep these waves at bay or an all-in initiation. If you see Aqua go into Descent into Madness, he is just committing to the fight, and the entirety of the Valkyries have to do so with him. Generally, when you've got a Cthulhu on your team, that's what your defense starts to look like. It's just best defense is a good offense. So we'll see if the Valkyries have got the damage behind them to actually make use. 1-3-1 split from the Camelot Kings. Variety just taking away as many offerings as he can on the way. Tier 2 tower in mid will fall down. Tier 2 on right will do the exact same. Camelot Kings haven't had to do anything for it just yet. No relics used, no ultimates used either. Maybe some damage on a Variety could be a good start.
Some damage will be there. Not enough to find a kill. Gamma caught out. And BigManTingz picks up the kill. Camelot Kings with now 8 kills on the board. 1 tier 2 tower left. That won't be where they go for. CaptainTwig already pushing up a minion wave on the right side. Makes this a 5v4 for the Camelot Kings. And Genetics will keep anybody out of the Phoenix if he so chooses to. Aquarius forced to descent into madness, and he was already low when he got there. And he's already gone as soon as he gets the opportunity to walk out. Netrioid finds the kill. Kyrmi able to dash away from CaptainTwig, but the Camelot Kings can just take whatever they want at this point, especially when walls like these are keeping everybody out.
Yeah, Aquarius dead for 40 seconds. Camelot Kings will take down that mid-Phoenix. Am I reading? They have all their ultimates?
Every single one of them. Even BigManTingz?
They didn't have to do anything for the fight? That's crazy.
Oh no, BigManTingz is down.
Okay, come on, man. I guess Relics lost. CaptainTwig blinked. Shell from BigManTingz. Both of them from Genetics. Yeah, the Camelot Kings are sweating it right now.
Yeah, and with this Emperor's armor out of CaptainTwig, that tower's not doing a whole lot to the Camelot Kings. 2 Phoenixes, 3 tier 2 towers. Well, remember, that was an 11K gold lead at 22 minutes. We're at 16K now, a 5K swing for the Kings. Add a little bit more when this Primal Fury goes down. The Valhalla Valkyries, they have beyond a mountain to climb. They're trying to climb Mount Olympus from the pits of Hades at this point.
Isn't it Tartarus like the deepest part?
I think so. Is that where Hades is too?
What? No,
No, that's
Hades
where
is like,
that's where the Titans are locked in.
well, them and like all the other big bads.
Well, oh, the river Styx. That's what Hades guards over. That goes
What?
pretty deep too.
No, that's like the. Yeah, what?
We've been informed that Hades is the deepest of the pits.
Yeah, look, man, my knowledge of Greek mythology begins and ends with Percy Jackson. All right, so I'm not your guy for it. I am your guy to tell you that the Camelot Kings have got a 99.99% odds at winning this match from here. Only one bird standing between them and a finished off match. Fire Giant only on him for 10 more seconds. I like to equate Fire Giant to about 10,000 gold. So, do you really need it? I don't think so. Well, maybe. Twig's low.
CaptainTwig, 3rd HP, has Fire Giant to keep himself at least a little sustained up. Does have Bumba's Hammer too, so just give him a wave or give him a camp and he'll be able to heal himself right back up. And with that last bird, a group of the Kings, no Fire Giant buff now to sustain them up, but CaptainTwig with that Bumbas, you can already see how much value he picked up from that on just a single minion wave. Minions push in towards the Phoenix, but the wall from Genetics holds off the second wave of it, so that way the Camelot Kings can now push in when the Archers have made their way, but doesn't seem like the Camelot Kings are willing to make the commit on the push. But now the Trebuchet here, it's going to force the Valkyries to make a decision.
Well, they've got to clear out the Trebuchet or it will eventually just take down the bird on its own. That's the first shot. 5% off. The Camelot Kings keeping it healthy. Nobody from the Valkyries stepping up, and can you blame them? Who wants to walk in to this iron wall? The Kings can just really slow play it. Right side already has some enhanced minion waves working into the base of the Valkyries. So the longer this goes, the better it looks for the Kings.
Half HP on the Phoenix. Good route from Gamma to the back, but it's still not doing very much. The Trebuchet is, I think, taking more damage from firing itself than it has from the Kings. Aquarius, the Descent to the Madness, he's still stuck inside of BigManTingz' damage.
What happened?
And Netrioid will pick off Kyrmi, jump in, wall will find BennyQ, the Phantom Shell is not enough. It's a double kill for Netrioid. CaptainTwig goes in, Wowy low, Wowy gone. Triple kill for the Hunter of the Camelot Kings. The last Phoenix will go down, and it's only Aqua and Gamma left to defend. Stun onto Aquarius. Netrioid going for the quadra kill if he can manage to find it there. Will find the quad.
Take it.
One more away from the pentakill from the DS side. Gamma, the last one to hold it back. Can Netrioid find the damage in time? It doesn't seem so. The crits aren't coming through in time for him. Gamma finds a double all the while, but the Titan goes down and the Camelot Kings close out at 2-0.
In less than an hour of combined play, I'll call it 2 deaths, all right? When you're dying to Fountain, I'm not willing to call that one. Clearly the Kings in high spirits. That is, I mean, that's light work. Brutal. Yeah.
Brutal game for the Valhalla Valkyries. Great game. If you're a Camelot Kings fan, if you're a Camelot Kings player, everybody's happy over on their side at the very least. Dominant performance in game number 1. A little bit slower to get there in game number 2, but once the Kings hit the gas pedal, they didn't just step on it, they tied the brick to it.
Yeah, I mean, the pedal to the metal, I don't know. There's so many idioms and analogies and phrases we could use. Get owned. That's all it was. They got owned.
There's not much more to go beyond there. Camelot Kings showing why they're the clear #1 seed right now out here in the battleground for the Season 9 of the SPL. That's it from us on the cast. We'll throw it to the desk. Close out the set.
That was always going to be a brutal set for the Valhalla Valkyries, but the Camelot Kings, they came to play, and this one was lopsided. Game number 2, no different really from game number 1. A different draft, but the same outcome. The Camelot Kings passively just build up 2.5, 3K gold in the lead. Gore, they get this gold lead going, then the fight is in their favor because of that. I liked the Valkyries' call on that early Gold Fury. They burn it away. It's something that catches the Kings a bit off guard, so that's a small nugget of good shot calling from the Valkyries. But ultimately, that small nugget is in a whirlwind of chaos that was the Camelot Kings victory.
Yeah, honestly, my favorite part of that set wasn't even something that happened in the set as much as it was something we were walking back in. You can hear the Kings down the hall just, I mean, absolutely loud, vocal with each other. You could tell the energy and I think the fun that they were having in this set. And look, when you're top of the team, you were talking about it earlier, you're top of the league right now. You get your chances to show it. This was one of the best showcases of why you're top of the league. Very clean play. You get through, pretty much no bumps in the road on the way there. Maybe a couple in game number 2. Otherwise, you pretty much just you dominated this one.
Yeah, look, these are always the difficult ones to break down because really from start to finish, the Camelot Kings had control of this game. It took to 20 minutes for the kills really to start to roll, but you're like 5k gold in the lead before a single kill has even dropped in here in this game. Fantastic look for the Camelot Kings. And really, BMTingz continues to surprise me, not because he's playing well, but because of how well he's playing given his current location, I mean, the ping status, those sorts of things. But it feels like BigManTingz hasn't quite missed a step. And then here is Netrioid at the end. You and I were walking back, so gets the clean triple.
Gets himself a quadra.
Gets himself a quad here in just a moment. But the elusive Penta, Gore.
The elusive Penta has yet to happen. Has there? I mean, like SPL play hasn't been a Penta yet this year, has there? So we're still waiting.
Yeah, unlucky for good old Netrioid there. Fine though with a 7-1-4 performance. I think in this one, only a couple of kills for the Valhalla Valkyries. It's onward and upward for the Valkyries team, hopefully. Didn't really have a game plan, Gore, that was able to upset what the Camelot Kings had.
I think it's going to be interesting how things continue to unfold on both sides of this, right? I think with the Valkyries, it's watching how this team can rise up, what they can do, where their improvements are going to be week in, week out. 3 more weeks of Phase 2 after this. So a lot of work to be done before the next Masters, but something interesting there. The other side, if you're the Kings, this one's like a nice little breeze through, right? Like you get to go, you're still top, you get that extra win over the Bolts in the standings when it comes down to it. So now you're going to be focused on the harder teams that you're going to be facing, the ones that are right next to you, teams like the Bolts, and when you face them and how you're going to tackle that, and then I think looking forward towards that land to see who exactly is going to be the biggest challenge.
Yep, Camelot Kings continue to roll, strategies continuing to work. In this set, no different. 2-0 to the Camelot Kings. CaptainTwig standing by with me for the post-game interview. Twig, there towards the end, Netrioid gets himself a quad. Is he devastated that the Penta just escaped his grasp there at the end of that game?
We all tried our very hardest. We all tried our very hardest to get Royd the Penta. Just shout out to Gamma duking. I mean, pretty lame, he could have maybe gone for the 1v5 clutch defense, but instead decided to save his KDA.
Sure. Look, Twig, these are always difficult questions, but when the team is playing such clean SMITE, I actually talked to Biggie before the set. He says there's always stuff to work on. What do you think the team didn't do well today? In a clean 2-0 set, is there anything that you feel like the Camelot Kings could have done better?
No. Honestly,
Fair enough.
we just had a perfect set. We just played our style, easy gods that we all know how to play, and played our game plan, basically.
Talk to me a little bit about BigManTingz, because he's playing from ping. I know Biggie also mentioned certain gods that you'd like to play, maybe not quite as easy because of the ping scenario. Has his mentality still been pretty strong given where he is? I mean, he's been playing some top-tier SMITE regardless.
If anything, he has stepped up a little bit, maybe understanding the pain of maybe
Sure.
us having to deal with a fraud in mid.
I'm going to ask about that, don't worry.
Yeah, but he has, attitude-wise and in practice, I think if anything, he's stepped up. He definitely is kind of sorry that he just had to renew his visa. So
Of course.
Yeah, I think he's been great recently, honestly.
And it's been all of the talk of the league, Twig, is the fraud tier list and where people fall. I believe we're going to bring it up on screen here.
That's great.
Now that you've had a chance to step back from it a bit, do you stand by where you've placed everyone and everything on this list, or would you make some amendments if you had the ability to drag some around?
Yeah, I'd put Scream and Shinto on way higher on the fraud scale.
Oh, you're like in the other direction,
Yeah, Shinto's
right?
been taking way too much farm. and Scream's been playing way too many weird characters.
I actually can't believe, and this is just a personal thing, I can't believe you would put a teammate in the no help tier like above everyone else, put variety and no help. Has that gone to his head at all?
Yeah, no, it doesn't go to his head. He's the most level-headed guy, and he definitely just doesn't get enough praise.
Fair
he
enough.
does get no help.
Look, variety and the rest of the Kings played great today. Twig, thanks for your time and best of luck in your future sets.
Thank you.
Camelot Kings score. They roll in this set. It's the expected result for this squad.
Yeah.
I always love to try to catch, a little something, like, because really, I mean, to us, right, we watch a set like that, and to us it looks flawless, and it near is. You drop one kill in each game, a couple kills in each game, and so I always wonder, and that's why I ask the questions, like, is there anything that stands out to you that you feel like you could have changed in a game? Like, is there any way that could have been more perfect? And Twig really feeling like the Kings did everything about as well as they could. I think a good luck.
There's going to be moments, right? Like, and Biggie said it going into this, but like mechanically, the Kings are just really solid, like as players, and you get to come in, you get to handle the draft, you get to do some of the review. And sets like this, it is, I would argue, maybe more difficult to figure out what exactly it is that you want to improve on, because how much of it, like, if there's a mistake late game, like, you're dying to the fountain, things like that, like,
sure,
how much of that's going to happen every game you're playing, right? Like, and so like there's certain things where it's like, okay, well that one was where we're having maybe a little bit too much fun mistake. Some of them are going to be okay. You know what? Maybe genuinely we need to work on X, Y, or Z. I think they just had a really good set of SMITE there, and they can be happy with it.
Yeah, they should be. Look, I mean, that's kind of a pokey proddy type of question, just to see if I can get a little nugget of something. But in reality, that's about as clean as it gets for the Kings. One final set this weekend, and it's a good one, Gormizer. So we just saw the Titans and the Leviathans. And very important, this set is standings-wise, as the Kings improved to 8-1. Bolts and Oni Warriors a couple of wins behind. The loser between the Titans and the Leviathans drops to a negative win-loss. Will drop to 4-5. The winner improves to 5-4. And so we're starting to get some separation there as well. Bolts and Warriors a couple wins ahead of the rest of the pack. But that'll change here at the end of this set. Really excited to see what Titans we get and what Leviathans we get to end the week.
Yeah, there's, I think, a lot of just talk around the two of them, right? Titans, we've seen the top end, that they have been incredibly powerful. Same thing. Leviathans a couple of weeks ago knocked down 2 undefeated teams. What are you going to do today? Like, what, are you going to be this team that we've seen who can collapse the top teams? Are you going to be a team that wins lands, or are you going to show up and are you going to be a team that gets 2-0'd or 0-2s?
They beat the Bolts and the Kings, who were both undefeated at the time, and then they beat the Valkyries, and then they lost to the Solar Scarabs in 3 games, and then they lost to the Oni Warriors in 2 games prior to this, or at the start of this weekend. Lots of questions for the Leviathans, lots of questions for the Titans, questions that will be answered. Leviathans versus Titans coming up next.